got a way to do that. We've got the great Don Fischer with us, the voice of the Hoosiers, and plenty more after that. But Don, how are you doing, sir?
I'm doing fine. Sun's up, so we're not going into some kind of an abyss.
Yeah, not exactly a great weekend for football in general around here. The Colts, not a good weekend. The Hoosiers, of course, as well, lose. But try to find something positive. Donaven McCulley looked good, but other than that, there was not a lot to shine in that game, Don.
Well, I will say this, and I don't want to get carried away with talking about the run game, but the run game actually showed up on Saturday, and Stephen Carr had a really nice performance. A couple of changes in the offensive line may have affected that run game a little bit or helped the run game. Zach Carpenter moved into the starting lineup at right guard. They moved Matthew Bedford over to the left guard position. And actually, the run game was effective through a good portion of the contest. Donaven McCulley adds a little bit to the run game because he's got great legs and can run the football. For a 6'5" guy, the guy is fast and he's strong. At 215, looks like he can take a pop and hang in there. So some really positive things from an offensive standpoint in this ball game. The throwing portion of it, I'm telling you right now, Donaven McCulley has utilized Peyton Hendershot better than any of our previous two quarterbacks have at this point. Now, granted, Jack Tuttle was starting to use him a little bit too when he was in there, especially in that opening drive against Ohio State. But nevertheless, Peyton Hendershot all of a sudden has been the go-to receiver, as he should be, based on size, the speed that he has for a tight end, and the fact that he doesn't drop the football this year. Last year, of course, that was a problem for him. But now he seems to have found himself in regard to catching the football, doing it consistently, and he looks like every bit the player that we thought he would be here at Indiana. And I think, without doubt, you've got to look at this guy as the key guy in your receiving corps.
Yeah, Don, he's setting records along the way doing that. So it shows that it's very effective, and it probably helps the running game. They are helping each other. And you mentioned Stephen Carr, the biggest run of the season for him, but that big run, great to see that. They've been looking for that all year. But getting the tight end involved, we talked earlier in the year, we'd hoped to see more of that because we knew they had some good ones, but it just didn't come to fruition. Hope it's probably a little bit too late now, but that portion of the game definitely looked a lot better on the offensive side of the ball.
Yeah, no question. And you're to be able to run and throw, it gives you more balance. Defenses can't set up for just one thing or concentrate on one aspect of the game. So there's little question in my mind that the offense this week looked probably the best it's looked all season long in any ball game, with the exception of perhaps Western Kentucky or Idaho.
Yeah, Charlie Miller joins us now. Donaven McCulley in there at quarterback, the third man up by force, but he didn't look too bad as for someone who was forced into that situation, a true freshman. Just the guy that has not gotten the number one snaps all year until here late. So you had to tip your hat to Donaven McCulley as well for stepping into that role.
Well, no question. Last week against Ohio State, he looked like a fish out of water. He was not confident. He didn't look like he was comfortable out there. He was definitely better in the second half than he was in the first when he first came into the ball game. That's why they had Grant Gremel come in, because obviously Donaven did not look like he had. Well, I don't know how much of the package that he was allowed to run in that ball game, and primarily they had him running the football against Ohio State rather than throwing it. So this past week, obviously, they made great strides, or he made great strides with his play. No question about that. No question he's the quarterback of the future at Indiana. He's 6'5", 215 pounds, can run, has a rocket arm. He's just going to keep getting better and better. And he's a great young man and very coachable.
Absolutely. Charlie, how are you doing, sir? I'm
saw the
game this weekend.
Hey,
Indiana
Charlie.
Losing on the road. The defense, Don, was the biggest surprise, I think, especially the secondary, who had been the stalwart of that defense and really just gave up the ghost this weekend.
I was very disappointed, to say the least. This defense has carried Indiana throughout this season. The first time that they didn't was against Ohio State. So you looked at that game as an anomaly because of how good Ohio State is offensively. But here's the thing. Against Maryland, they give up 419 passing yards. I mean, and you got two corners that are hurt. Tywan Mullen did play in this game, but briefly. He's still not 100% by any stretch of the imagination. Jalen Williams is a veteran corner who's really good and outstanding. I'm not as upset with the players, at least at this point, as I am about what I saw from a coaching perspective, because look, I know the game plan was to corner blitz, but every time Indiana corner blitzed in this ball game, Carlos Carrier is wide open for a catch. And Carlos Carrier, 6'5", 207 pounds or whatever he is, can run. And we didn't stop doing it. We continued to corner blitz, and that guy burned us all day long. This kid had 7 catches coming into this game all season long. He had 8 catches in this game for 119 yards or something like that, and absolutely burnt Indiana every single time they corner blitzed, which give credit to Tagovailoa, the quarterback, because last year when they corner blitzed, he didn't know what to do. He knew exactly what he was going to do with the football in this ball game every time Indiana corner blitzed, and we didn't stop doing it.
Yeah, the lack of making that adjustment was really mind-boggling because it continued to happen. Like you said, it was like, okay, guys, you see this. It's like they just were comfortable dropping back into a deep zone and letting everything underneath. But that bend but don't break, they broke, and they broke too much. So that's going to be something they have to get fixed. But obviously, the season is really in peril now anyway, because you have no margin for error as far as bowl eligibility. With a road game coming up at Michigan, road game coming up at Purdue, you can't lose any more out. It's going to be tough sledding for the Hoosiers.
Well, I don't even want to talk about a bowl game at this point because there's no sense in talking about it. The only way you can go to a bowl now is to beat Michigan,
at Michigan,
Rutgers, Minnesota, and Purdue. And you got to do 2 of those things on the road against Michigan and Purdue. And Purdue is playing their best football in several years at this point in the season because they have kind of slid at the end of years, and they're now getting stronger. And you're going to face a Minnesota team that very well could be fighting for the Western Division Conference Championship because they're right there with Wisconsin. And Rutgers is a team that's gotten much improved over a year ago. So I don't know why you would be talking about anything other than one game at a time. And you have got to beat Michigan this week to keep any of those hopes alive.
Yeah, and Michigan has been playing pretty well. I thought they were going to win the game that they actually lost to Michigan State. And that's another mind-boggling thing. We see Michigan State and Cincinnati still continuing to go flying high, where both those games were games I thought Indiana should have won in those contests. So it makes you just really scratch your head and like, daggone, a season that could have been that has really gone off the rails.
Well, Charlie, I've got to bring you into this conversation because I'm sick of talking about it. So go ahead.
No, I was always taught you have nothing good to say. Don't say it at all.
That's why he's being quiet.
Don't say it at all.
Well, how was your weekend then? Let's have a good conversation with Fish. How was your weekend?
I mean, weekend was great. I mean, it was Halloween weekend, right? So I dressed up as a lame coach. I was a coach. So I was a coach, but it's just so heartbreaking, to be honest with you. I mean, Don, I feel for you, man. I mean, the optimism you have to have going into even the coaching show. I mean, just the optimism. I feel for you because, man, that's tough. I mean, and I said this. Now think about this. Indiana football was like Northwestern basketball for me in the 90s. It was a guaranteed win. I don't care how bad we played. I don't care who we lost to. We've had Northwestern on the schedule. That was going to be a good game for me. We were going to win. You just look forward to those type of games. Right. Unfortunately, man, it's just, I mean, they're just at a place and space, I think, where you just don't have any momentum. And I don't know if the coaches are poor as far as in-game adjustments. I think they're doing all they can do. I just think you're at a place where you're not getting the breaks, you're not getting the possessions. One thing's led to another. As far as poor performance, I know those guys are prepared. It's just you're in a funk. You just are at a funk. Injuries at your major position quarterback. Great adjustment this week. I definitely would say great adjustment. But, I mean, it's just unfortunate what they could have been to what they're actually producing.
And Don, that brings up the question of managing the team's mental state now from here on out. I would think that's kind of, I think, would be more important now. They've got to keep these guys from getting too far down.
Yeah.
Well, I that's the question I ask every week now. I ask every week, Tom Allen on our talk show. I ask him every week what the mentality of your football team is. And right now, I can't see that it's positive in any way, shape, or form. I mean, these kids keep talking it. I mean, I literally interviewed the starting center, Dylan Powell, after the ball game on Saturday, and he was as positive as you could possibly be. So when you talk to the kids, at least when you talk to them, they give you the right answers. But are the right answers what they're actually feeling? And does it translate into how they practice?
Yeah.
Tom Allen keeps saying that they practice hard, they're focused, they're resilient, all those kinds of things. But we're not seeing the results in the football field. And obviously the results on the football field magnify whether you feel good or you feel bad. Those things absolutely magnify dramatically how you go about your business. And it does the same thing with a fan base. I mean, the fan base just sees what happens on the field. They don't see what's happening in practice. They don't see how hard these guys are working. They're just sitting there going, what has happened to this football team? And that's the struggle right now that we're all having. And you got to feel for the coaches and you feel for the players in that regard, because these guys had tremendous expectations just like we had of them.
Yeah, and I'm trying to think how far back I got to go years wise, which not that far, but I mean, it's been a few years since we've had to look at the team in this manner, because they've either been on the rise or were there and coming and losing close games. And so we got to go back some seasons before this type of situation was with them. And so hopefully they don't fall back into that and maintain that forward positive motion, because they've got a lot of good things coming. Hopefully they can get through this season. Now, bowl season, we said, forget about that. You have to manage the season, as you said, one game at a time now to get through this season with a positive mentality, I guess.
Well, here's the story. You got a Michigan team that you're going to face this week. Michigan State knocks them off at Michigan State this past weekend. So Michigan's going to be mad. They're going to be upset. They're going to go out there and going to try to pound Indiana. That's what they do anyway, because their strength is their run game. They start 3 tight ends. I mean, I looked at their starting lineup last week. They start 3 tight ends because they're trying to run the ball down your throat. Now, to Indiana's credit, I actually think that may help Indiana a little bit if they don't throw it, based on what we saw this past week, because we couldn't stop the passing game of Maryland. And hopefully Indiana figures out what the problem is there. Hopefully Tywan Mullen's back. I'd like to see Reese Taylor back. I don't know if that's going to happen. And we may see Jack Tuttle or Michael Penix back this week. That's also a possibility. Not that we need Donaven McCulley to be out of the lineup, because right now he did a terrific job last week in making a tremendous jump in his performance from the first time out there to the second time out there. So those are all positive things. And maybe the changes they made in the offensive line has helped as well, with Zach Carpenter getting in there at the 1 guard spot, Katie out, and putting Bedford at the other guard spot. I don't know. All I can tell you is the run game was better this week than it was any other time so far this year. The passing game was very good under McCulley. It's still not perfect, but it's definitely there. And you keep hitting Hendershot, I think you got pluses going at that point. I'm not so sure they shouldn't put A.J. Barner in the lineup and throw to him too, because they talk about him like he's a tremendous athlete and he's a terrific player. I'm not so sure you don't go to your tight ends, because our wide receivers don't separate. They struggle to separate from defensive players. So honestly, at this juncture, I would try a lot of different things at this point. What do you have to lose?
Exactly. It's that time of year. I know you've got the coaches show coming up again this Wednesday at 7:05 Southern Stone Restaurant, right?
Yep, 7:05 on Wednesday night with Coach Allen. And then our first Inside IU basketball show is next Monday night with Mike Woodson. And obviously the first Indiana basketball game this year, official game season, will open on Tuesday of next week. So we're 9 or 8 days away from basketball season officially getting underway.
And not only that, today, Mr. Clowney is making his decision as well. So we'll know about that later on today. So all kinds of basketball starting to squeeze into here, Don. So it's about time for double duty for you.
Yep, it's going to be a very busy month of November, to say the least.
Well, man, we can't tell you how much we appreciate you talking to you each week and look forward to doing it again. We'll see you on Wednesday.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
All right, Don. Appreciate you, brother.
The great Don Fischer joining us here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio as he does each week. And we'll be back with more. Charlie Miller joining us right after this.